does Hideo Kojima get his ideas? In this podcast, we take a deep dive into his brain and shed light on his creative process. Hideo Kojima presents Brain Structure.
こんにちは、小島秀夫です。ポッドキャストプログラムHideo Kojima Presents Brain Structure。
Hello, Hideo Kojima here with the podcast program Hideo Kojima Presents Brain Structure. Today, we have a guest with us from overseas, so please welcome my partner in Los Angeles.
Thank you, Mr. Kojima. Hello, everyone. I'm Jeff Keighley, producer of the Game Awards and TGA, the Jeff's Answer. Mr. Kojima, as always, it is such a pleasure to be here on Brain Structure. We've had a lot of great guests on the podcast over the past few weeks, and today's guest is an actor and musician who has appeared in many of Mr. Kojima's works. Of course, I'm talking about Mr. Troy Baker. So without further ado, let's dive into this conversation.
はい、それでは今日のスペシャルゲスト、トロイ・ベイカーさんです。
Let's welcome our special guest, Mr. Troy Baker. Thanks for coming on the show.
Welcome, Troy. Troy,
Thank
it's
you
so
very
good
much.
to have you here. I just saw you a couple nights ago at the premiere of The Last of Us HBO show, which was fun to see you, Troy, and now have you here with Hideo, which is a conversation we've been wanting to have for a long time. When we started Brain Structure, one of the people we always saw in the comments is like, when is Troy going to come on? So welcome to the show, because I know you do your own podcast as well, right, Troy?
I'm a fan of conversations, and I like whenever I can facilitate a conversation with people that I both like and respect and have worked with. Because most of the time that we get to do this, we don't get to talk. We're like, Hideo, if you and I are on set, there's work to be done. So we don't have an opportunity to just sit down and just chat about things. You're very busy. And Jeff, we're always like two ships. You know, you're running... You know, you've got the awards show, you've got Summer Games Fest, everyone's busy doing things. So an opportunity for us to just sit down in our respective comfort zones and just have a curated conversation. I'm excited for this, man. Thank you for having me.
Let's talk a bit about Troy. I think one thing that I really want to start this with is like, when did you and Hideo first meet? Do you remember, like, were you auditioning for a role? Did you meet him at an event? Like, do you remember Hideo? Like, how did you guys actually first connect? Because Troy, you're obviously ubiquitous doing so many voices in games. But...
Troy was already very famous in the industry, and especially in Japan, since he was in games like Final Fantasy. He was really popular. Plus, he was like super good looking, right? He still is. But anyways, I was always aware that he was an international actor who Japanese people knew really well. And when we were doing MGS5, we had to cast Ocelot, which is a pretty important role, and I wanted to ask Troy to do it. But I don't remember exactly how we first met. I feel like I've known him from ages ago. Personally, it feels to me like I've worked with Troy since even before MGS5.
Do you remember Troy? Like, did you have to audition?
Well, I remember, this is what I remember. Chris Zimmerman, who was our booth director, she was the VO director, and she has a long relationship with Hideo and obviously the franchise of Metal Gear. She said, you know, I've got this role I think you'd be good for. And so I come in for the session, and I didn't realize, I knew it was Ocelot, and I was kind of already freaking out. What I didn't realize is that I was going to walk into the studio and Hideo was going to be there. That's what I wasn't prepared for. And so I had this moment where I walk in and I stop, like my jaw drops, because there's been sessions that I've done with, you know, developers that are overseas, and typically they're going to patch in somehow, or they may be on Skype or whatever. But typically the creator, the director is not there when they're overseas. And there he was, and I went, oh no. And I don't get nervous often, but that was one where I really got nervous. And I remember one specific part where we were recording, and I looked down at the script, and there's this line, and I kind of stop and I look, and Hideo looks at me and goes, is there a problem? And I said, no, I get to say you're pretty good. And I don't have many opportunities. Typically we're creating something new. And there's been a few opportunities for me to step into a role that's been established by great actors before and great iterations in previous games, and for me to walk into this one, I felt the weight of it, and it really impressed me that not only was Hideo there, but there was such a connection, and we knew what we were doing with Phantom Pain, that we were trying to lovingly wrap a bow on this franchise that has lasted, decades. And I was honored to be a part of that. So that's the beginning. That's the beginning of the relationship, and it's only spurred on from there.
そうです。その後まあショーとかパーティーとか。
Yeah, exactly. And after that, I have memories of meeting at shows and parties. If you go anywhere in the industry, Troy is always there. Plus, he's really tall, right? So he stands out easily.
You can see me. I remember it like this. There was always, like, when we left, when we were wrapping, I think it was our very last session on 5, you said, I want to work together with you. And there's a lot of, I work with a lot of directors, and that's a common thing for a director to say to an actor, or for an actor to say to a director. But a lot of times it's almost as common as just saying goodbye. There's not necessarily a commitment to that. And so I remember we passed at, we were in Vegas for DICE, and we were walking from the hotel to where the actual ceremony was. And I just get this tap on my shoulder, and I look, and I was like, oh shit, there you are. And he's like, can we take a picture together? And that meant the world to me. And then you said, I want to work with you. And I was like, okay, man, whenever you want, you're ready. I'm ready for it. And it just became and then that culminated again at like the game show or Jeff's, it was I guess it was the
E3
early
Coliseum.
iteration. Yeah, it's the Coliseum. And you're like,
Yeah.
well, we're going to do this together. And I'm like, I think this guy's serious. And I'll never forget, this culminated in, we were at the EW party at Comic-Con in San Diego. And I get this tap on my shoulder, and I looked over, and there you are. And it was like, Hideo wants you to meet your co-star. And I went, what? And we walked through the crowd of all the cool people, and we look, and Norman Reedus turns around, he goes, hey man, I'm Norman. I'm like, what is happening right now? And that's when I found out that I was going to be in Death Stranding.
That's an amazing story, because I remember that year at E3 Coliseum, I remember Hideo was kind of wanting to see you, and was hinting like, I have something for you, but he didn't even know who the character was or what it was. It's just that he had thought about you for this game, and he's always so loyal, considerate of people that work with him that he loves, kind of bringing back for additional projects. So yeah, it was really special, and I think the fan reaction to Ocelot in MGS5, as you said, was people really loved you and that game. What are your memories of that game overall, Troy? Because I remember certainly Kiefer had played Snake, and I mean, you had a lot of dialogue, because sometimes Kiefer would be a little quiet, and you would have a lot more to say, and that was quite like a dynamic between the two of you.
We definitely, Kaz and I both did a lot of talking in 5, which as an actor, I'm grateful for. I got a lot of screen time, but it was cool for me as a fan of the franchise to kind of see early on where Hideo was wanting to take, where we were going to, how he was going to let the sun set on this franchise. That, I mean, it's hard to do that. I think it's hard as creators for, first of all, to have an idea, and then to have that idea become a thing and actually make the thing. And then you get somebody else to believe in that thing, and then they help you put that thing out. And then you put it out into the world where people are cruel and will judge it and criticize it. And then not only to do that once, but to do that 12 times? I mean, how many iterations of Metal Gear there are, in all of its forms, and for people to continue to love this franchise. And then I get to come in the very last part and help bring this thing to its conclusion. That was an honor for me. And I've said this a lot, but I definitely want to say it in front of you, Hideo, because often you hear people say, don't meet your heroes. And I just think that you need to get better heroes. But you should absolutely meet with them, and if at all possible, work with them, because that's an incredible opportunity to be able to do that.
5の、オセロット
MGS5 and the character of Ocelot was a very hard role. Ocelot starts out as an antagonist, the villain, in the first Metal Gear. But he starts to change. He shifts more towards Snake. In MGS5, Snake isn't really Snake, and Ocelot becomes kind of like the storyteller. And this was really difficult, and playing the part of Ocelot was risky, but Troy did an amazing job, so I'm really grateful. I think it was a really hard role. And also, Troy is a great guy and a great person to work with, so I wanted him to be in Death Stranding. Plus, we were going to have actors like Norman and Leia who didn't have any experience doing games, so I thought that Troy, who is a veteran in this field, would be able to help other actors feel at ease and create a comfortable set for them. That was part of the reason I offered him the role.
Thank you, man. That's very, very kind of you. It's an intimidating thing to walk onto a set. That specific set that we're on, I'm very comfortable at. We shot that at the Reserve, which is a place where most of the Sony stuff is shot. Everything from Uncharted, Last of Us. There's been so many games that have been shot there, and I've got a permanent pair of shoes that are there, so I'm there a lot. But there's a different thing when you walk in, and all of a sudden you've got Norman Reedus and Lea Seydoux and Mads Mikkelsen, and you're like, oh my gosh, wait a minute, this isn't. I felt like a freshman in high school that all of a sudden somehow was at the senior prom, and I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here, and it's a big production. The way that KGP rolls is I love that there's all eyes happening on set. That a lot of times is not the case. There's some where it's like you have one person that's on set and they're going to try to relay as much information back to the team as possible. But there's a lot of decisions that, and I applaud you for this, Hideo, to be able to make decisions in real time. To where if an actor makes a choice, you're like, hang on a second, and you consult with everyone and go, let's roll with that. That's really cool. As opposed to it not feeling like we can really make a decision on the day. I feel like we were making decisions, we were making edits on the day. But being able to have that opportunity to work with them, and especially Norman and I have become friends, and I never thought that would be a thing, but he's an incredibly, that guy's work ethic is second to none. And I've never experienced someone come into this medium like he did and just throw himself at it and be down for anything. One of my favorite stories, I think it was our second or third scene ever to shoot. And in the script, it said that Higgs licks Sam's face. And, we have these helmets on with a camera in front of it. And so I'm thinking ahead, thinking that I've got my head around it. And I go, so we're probably just going to mine that. And Hideo was like, no, you're going to lick his face. And Norman just looks at me and goes, F it, dude, let's get weird. So I was like, this dude is down for anything. It was great.
Well, I think it's so fascinating when you talked about Hideo, Troy being an actor who's done so many video games, or comfort level for the other actors and performance capture. You went, Troy, from doing, voice work on MGS5 to the performance capture, and that's something you have done. And, one of the things I think we all appreciate about you is how versatile you are as an actor and how many games you've done, across the industry, and incredible roles and performances. And Hideo, I wanted to ask you a little bit about Troy as an actor, because you've worked with all these actors, but Troy has been in so many games, and he is so good as, whether he plays the Joker or he's playing Joel or Higgs or Ocelot. Can you maybe tell me a bit about Troy as an actor and why you think he's so good in so many different roles?
Yes, please tell me why I'm so good.
当然デフォルメはうまいですよね。
Well, Troy is obviously really good at portraying cartoonish characters and voices too. And not only that, but he can also handle live action performance captures where you have to act out realistic movements, expressions, and voices. So he can do both. And with Higgs, it requires both skills, which is Troy's forte. Higgs appears real, but he also deforms to a game style. For instance, when Higgs turns to the player and speaks in their direction, he looks at the camera all of a sudden, sort of breaking the fourth wall. Something like that is hard for movie actors to understand, but Troy gets it right away. He has a lot of range.
Very kind of you, man. Thank you. To me, when you first presented me with Higgs, I always look at the concept art. That to me is very informing. And I think it's important for people to know, like, we first sat down and I think we met for like 2 or 3 hours. and just talked about the character and talked about the story and talked about the world. Nothing to do with, okay, let's get in the booth or let's read through the script or let's go on the stage and rehearse. It was just, I want to bring you into this world. I want to show you what I'm trying to do. And we just talked about the character. And one of the things that I loved was that Higgs he wears masks. And even though you get to see my face, Higgs very rarely will take off the mask. There's always a mask underneath the mask. And I thought that was a very interesting, it's something that I latched onto when I was trying to find out who this character is. Like, where is he in the story? What is he wanting to accomplish? And what I love is when we do have these opportunities, it's fun to play the villain. But my favorite moments with Higgs is when he takes off the final mask. And you get to see the vulnerability in him. You get to see when he's talking about his dad, you get to see these memories of himself that you understand how he got where he is. And that to me is a compelling character when it's not just a one-dimensional villain with a mustache to twirl, but when there's actually just layers upon layers upon layers upon layers. And fortunately, we got a story that allowed us to dive deep into all of those layers.
When you talk about Higgs, one thing interesting to talk about is the idea that, in Hideo's games, the actors look like the actual actors, right? Like the performance capture it is Troy, whereas when you're Joel in The Last of Us, it's your voice and your performance capture, but it's sort of a different face that they put on the character. Do you have a preference, Troy, or does it affect sort of how you perform when it actually is, Troy Baker as the character? I think in Call of Duty there were a few times where the character sort of looked like you as well, right? It just depends, I guess. Right?
I mean,
does it affect it?
From an ego standpoint, I love it when people, I get to go, hey, that's me, and people go, yeah, they can't argue with it because it looks like me. It's like, no, that isn't. I played Joel. No, you didn't. It's like, no, I really did. I really did. But there is some comfort to being able to hide behind an artist's representation of who that character is, and that's why games to me are different than doing a film. I say it's a commerce of trust, because in a game, whether I sometimes I step into a booth and the only tool that they're giving me to portray that character, besides the script, is a microphone, and my job as the actor is to tell a story that moves you as the audience. That's it. That's my entire job. Is to just be a part of telling a story that's going to move you. And either I get a mic to do that, or if I'm on a performance capture stage, now I've got all of these tools. I have the face cam, and I have all the other cameras that are capturing my movement, and I can incorporate my own physical choices into the character. And I've got this world to interact with on a very simple level. I can actually interact with props, and I can sit down, I can stand up, and I've got other actors to work off of. And so there's this every time there's more resources that are given to me as an actor, there's more trust that's being placed in me as an actor to be responsible with those resources. But when those resources are taken away, it's then I'm giving the trust that they are going to take my performance and be able to intuit the intention that I had behind it, so that hopefully we're working towards the same character in the same story. And when that happens, that's when I think that we get something, and we tell a story that actually resonates with the audience. And when we don't, I think the audience feels it. And clearly they did with Death Stranding. They felt it.
A
good movie, a good game, a good story does not hold up without a good villain. And Troy, just as you said, Higgs has 3 layers. I deliberately did that. He has a mask on first, but since we did a PCAP with Troy, you can hear his voice, but you can't see his face. The users get to experience voice actor Troy. And once the mask is removed, you can see his face, his acting, and it's the actor Troy. And Higgs, at this moment, is like Higgs playing the part of Higgs acting as the villain. And what I mean by that is Higgs wasn't really always bad. But the players don't know that yet. It isn't until the very end, when you gather all the documents, that you learn of Higgs' past, and the human side of Higgs is revealed. That's the third and final layer. I wanted to convey the character of Higgs through this process of removing the 3 layers, and there aren't many people who can make it happen. On top of that, Higgs is a boss character, so you have to fight him throughout the game. And so he needs to give game-like motives and emotions to the players. And it's all thanks to Troy for making that happen.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Such a good collaboration you guys have had. And I wanted to ask, as your career has evolved, Hideo is exploring now other mediums and thinking about, what could films be or other, expressions of creativity. You really have stayed very focused on games, I think, Troy. And even though, you're in the Last of Us show as not playing Joel, but as another character, which we're looking forward to seeing. For you, do you want to do more movies or streaming shows in the future, or do you feel like games are where you want to stay focused? Like, where will your career go?
I do love games. I've played games my entire life, and I feel like there is a unique opportunity inside of a game to engage with an audience. A book can engage with its audience in a certain way. A TV show has an opportunity to engage with its audience in a certain way. A film, it's all there are different ways of telling a story, and that's it. And at the end of the day, I'm a storyteller. So if someone's going to give me an opportunity to tell a story inside of a game, then that's where I'm going to go tell a story. If someone gives me an opportunity to do so in music, then I'm going to tell a story inside of music. All I care about is I just want to tell a story. I think that right now what we're seeing is an evolution of film with a new audience. We have to engage with the audience in a different way because TV has therefore changed, and the proliferation of how we tell a story episodically has evolved in the last 5 years. There was no notion of binge watching before 10 years ago, less than 10 years ago. And now what we're seeing is that people do like to go back and have event viewing. They do want to sit for an hour or 2 hours once a week and digest these stories, and then spend the rest of the week talking about and thinking about those characters and the choices that they made, and then come back the next week. And so I think that what we're seeing now is just, and this is happening as well in games. Like, we've seen everything from the 2-hour game to the 200-hour game and everything in between. And I think what I'm encouraged by is that I see people wanting more stories, and they don't care how they get it, but they just want a better story. So it's not that TV is where it's at, and that's where we should all be focusing on. Or James Cameron saying everybody needs to get back to the theater, and film is where it's supposed to be. I think that it's a yes and. I think that people need to play games, read books, watch shows, watch movies. They need to engage with good stories. But as long as we're giving them good stories, then we're doing our job. And I think it's incumbent upon us to tell good stories, and then let the audience be the audience and let them judge it on its own. But we can't pander to the audience. But to answer, I guess, a very simple way of answering your question, if somebody gives me an opportunity to tell a story in any medium, that's my goal. It doesn't matter if it's a show, a film, a game, whatever. That's all I want to do.
And I think it's also, now I think we used to see there were game actors or voice actors and film actors, and now I think we're seeing the blurring, right, of just being actors that can move across kind of all these different mediums. And Hideo, I'd love your thoughts on this, but it seems like you're building sort of the platform to be able to do this, to have the lifelike characters in the games, and really just have great actors across all mediums.
Well, setting aside deformed animation in cartoons, it is nearly impossible to create CG animation from scratch in a world of photorealism, whether it's a game or a movie or a TV drama. So we have to capture actors in their performance, their voice, their movement. We will forever need this no matter how much AI evolves. Essentially, you're converting a story into a digital one, but a computer cannot do that from the ground up. So I think the need for actors will continue on forever. The existence of actors and human beings in general will always be there.
I agree with that. And I think if for no other reason than, Hideo, you love to work with actors. So I'm sure that you love being able to see what, creating AI and watch it move inside, even if it's grayscale or ones and zeros, that can be exciting as a designer. And a coder can look and watch their code run and accomplish its goal and be excited by that. But one of the reasons why I think that actors are so important is because directors like to have that relationship. And I think that there's something very human about two people coming to the same idea, looking at it differently, but still accomplishing the same result. Like understanding where the story needs to go and together getting there. That's what I mean. That's really what the entire game was about, is being able to deliver this one thing to this destination. How do we get there? And that's why I don't think that AI doesn't scare me. Only because if no other reason, it's fun to work with people. It's fun. We're designed to be community in community. We're social animals. So we want to be together. We don't want to be disparate, and we don't want to just push a button, have everything do something. We want that convenience so that we can do the things that we really enjoy. And one of the things that we really enjoy is making together. So that's why I don't think that will ever be replaced.
No, I agree. And DS2, looks like you're collaborating again. And speaking of collaboration, you did this song with BB's theme, kind of a Troy's version, I guess, that we got to hear. I don't know what we can say about that or not, but maybe I'll go to you, Mr. Kojima, so Troy doesn't get in trouble. But
yeah.
it's just...
これもですね、どこまで
Yes. I don't know how much of this I can share with you. I can't say who it is yet. But in my original concept, there was no singing involved. I knew that Troy could sing, and he even sang to his fans around the world during the pandemic. I listened to that many times. And as I listened to it, I thought it would be cool to have Troy sing. This was made possible because Troy was cast in the first place. And I can't say much about DS2, but songs will play an important role.
Have the DS2 teaser at the Game Awards, Troy, to have your voice and singing voice in the teaser. And one thing that Hideo and I were talking a lot about Game Awards was how cool it was to, we always have the performance award, and to have Al Pacino come out and present it, which was a real fun sort of moment. And I was curious, to me, that moment with Chris and Al, I think was just so great, and I think really hopefully elevated the appreciation of games and the medium for him to say, all the actors that he's seen in games, how the work is so incredible. And I'm curious, for you as an actor and one of our most acclaimed actors in the gaming industry, what did you think of what Al was saying and him being at TGA?
The thing that I loved is that it wasn't he was there out of the passion, like he was there organically, I guess is the way that I would put it.
Right, he wasn't there to promote a movie or something. Yeah.
Nope, it wasn't like, I'm here, this is one of the stops on my marketing tour. He was there because he sees how much his kids love games. And the thing that I love is whenever we can be ambassadors to the non-gaming world and let them see that we really take this seriously. And not only that we take this seriously, but that there's a reason why we take this seriously. And the thing that is always on display, Jeff, at your show is it is such a celebration of games. And there is this balance that you have to do between, engaging with an audience, but also rewarding the people that have honestly, earnestly worked for the accolades. But then also giving people what they're there for also, which is to see what's coming up. And this is what we're celebrating the past year, but here's what's coming up for the next year. And it's this three-ring circus that you're always running. And the thing that I loved is not just Pacino, man, which was everybody just like the reverence when he just walked past was incredible. Like he could have been, throwing flower petals at his feet. It was just incredible. But the response of the audience for Al Pacino walking out, and then all the other people involved with the games that year was met with the same amount of acclaim and excitement. And that
right,
to
when
me,
Chris won, people were that excited too that Chris Judge
yeah.
yeah.
But it's like also, I mean, I would say this whether you were here or not, Hideo, but you walk out and people flipped. So it's the fact that the people that play games celebrate excellence. And to me, that was on display. The fact that when Pacino was walking by, he left, he did his thing and he left, but he stood there for a second and like shook hands, and he was kind and it was gracious. And then the thing that I also loved is that Chris Judge at that moment was all of us, because for Pacino to be like, you earned this award and I get to be the one to give it to you. Every actor in the room was like, oh my God, just want to plaster my face over Chris's and just be that person. Oh, and the fact that Pacino got the honor of being present when Chris set the record for longest acceptance speech.
Ever.
まあそのゲームのレベル上げるっていう
Yeah, I definitely think that one of the goals behind this was to raise the medium of games. But I also think that, ultimately, this was the first step in proclaiming that games are just like movies, and that they're all entertainment.
Agreed.
Troy, before we go, I wanted to ask if you have any message you want to share with our listeners around the world.
Well, I mean, first to you two, thank you for facilitating conversations. Like I said, I'm a fan. I'm a connoisseur of great conversation. So thank you for not only doing this, but also inviting me into it and allowing me to be a part of this conversation. If I were to say anything to anybody listening, I think that I would encourage everyone to realize that this has been a conversation amongst storytellers. Clearly, Hideo is a masterful storyteller and has been doing so for decades and will continue to do so as well. He'll outlive us all. Jeff, you as well are a storyteller. I'm a storyteller. And anybody that's listening to this, understand that you are a storyteller as well. No matter what you do, whether it's working in games, if you're an actor, writer, director, or if you work at a pizza place, you're still telling your story. And just make sure that it is a good story and that the pen always stays in your hands, and don't let anybody else write your story for you.
Well, it's a great message. Thank you so much, Troy. We look forward to seeing you in many games in the coming years. I'm sure it won't slow down, but especially in DS2.
Thank you, man.
まだ撮影残ってるんで
We still have a lot of shooting left.
Hell yeah.
はい、ブレインストラクチャー早くも
It's time to wrap up the episode.
Well, that was a great episode with Troy. I can't wait to learn more about what he's doing in DS2. And as Mr. Kojima said, they have a lot of work ahead of themselves for DS2. But Troy is such a great actor, and you'll be able to see him in real life as a actor in the HBO Last of Us series. He's coming up a little bit later in the season. Well, we're currently accepting messages to the Brain Structure podcast. If you have any thoughts about the podcast or suggestions for guests or topics for Mr. Kojima, we have the link in the description box, so feel free to send them our way. We're looking forward to hearing from all of you.
次回の秀夫小島プレゼンツ
Please look forward to next week's episode of Hideo Kojima Presents Brain Structure.
さようなら
Hideo Kojima Presents Brain Structure is a production by Spotify Studios in association with Kojima Productions and Fam Inc. TGA, the Jeff's Answer MC, Jeff Keighley. Narrator, Owen Maki. Music, Silent Poets. Visual design, Mechi Kuro. Producer, Hiro Furuki. Director, Kohei Takizawa. Executive producer at Spotify, Asami Sekine. Special thanks to Kojima Productions, Ayako Terashima, Masafumi Chiba, Miki Suga, and Aki Saito. Hosted by Hideo Kojima.
Today's guest was Troy Baker. We got some valuable insight into DS2 and also nice memories from the first Death Stranding. Now I want to go watch the DS2 teaser trailer again. On the next episode. Oh, wait a second. I've been handed a note from the staff now. Next week is another special guest episode, but we can't give out the details yet, so just do your best. We believe in you. What? What do you expect me to do? Can I at least say it's a voice actor? Oh, no, I can't? Uh-oh. Stay tuned for next week.